is witchcraft a culture? And I'm like, yeah, of course witchcraft is a culture. That was my first instinct, you know? Witchcraft is also an aesthetic. So that's where I was like, aha, I'm going to research this. I have dug down into what the definition of a culture is, if witchcraft, it can be defined as a culture, and can witchcraft be appropriated as a culture? Like, if it is a culture, can it be appropriated? Hey witches, welcome to Busy, Gritty, Inked and Witchy, a magical living podcast for the busy witch. I'm Morgan, eclectic witch of almost 25 years, Avalon priestess, and busy witch. Here we'll talk all things witchy, from current metaphysical happenings to my busy witch tips and tricks, and everything in the in-between. This podcast is my personal journey, filled with my knowledge, opinions, and unique way of looking at the world. Join me as I weave the magical and the mundane in every episode. Hey witches, welcome back to Busy, Gritty, Inked and Witchy. I'm Morgan, and today I'm going to be talking about witchcraft as culture. I don't know if that's just a working title, I guess. Yeah, but anyway. So this week's episode is actually inspired by a TV show, and it's not a witchy TV show. But I'm really excited, like as I really started to think about what happened on this show and I got into it, I am so excited for this episode. I really hope it clicks with a lot of people, but at least gives you something to think about, okay? So my husband and I watched Shrinking, which is on Apple. It is Jason Segel, Harrison Ford. It's an amazing show. It's like a little 30-minute show. We fell in love with it maybe last year, binged it, and now we're caught up. And last week's episode... or this week's episode, we watched last night, and there was a moment in there where there's Jason Segel and Harrison Ford are therapists, and they have another therapist in their group named Gabby. And Jason Segel has a daughter named Alice, and Alice and Gabby are talking. And Gabby is very nervous about going away to college, Alice is very nervous about going away to college, and Gabby is basically telling her, girl, you can do whatever you want. You know, like you can be whoever you want, you can reinvent yourself. And she goes into a little bit of her history where she said, my freshman year at college, I went into the witchy aesthetic, and it was so cute. But Alice said this line that stuck with me, and she said, I feel bad for appropriating the witch culture. And I laughed, and then I started thinking. I'm like, okay, witchcraft is a practice. It can be a spiritual path, but it's a practice that you can incorporate into any spiritual path. But like, is witchcraft a culture? And I'm like, yeah, of course witchcraft is a culture. That was my first instinct, you know? But I was like, I'm gonna nerd out. I'm gonna deep dive into this. Okay. Witchcraft is also an aesthetic. So that's where I was like, aha, I'm going to research this. So got to work today, and like, that's it. That's all I've done for hours. Okay. I have dug down into what the definition of a culture is. If witchcraft, it can be defined as a culture, and can witchcraft be appropriated as a culture? Like, if it is a culture, can it be appropriated? And man, I went so nerdy today. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And I'm super excited to talk about stuff like this because it is so nerdy and I love it. And I love how much this opened up. I don't know, everything for me, like the way I look at things, the way that it's just been great. Okay, let's do it. Let's get into it. All right. So to start off this episode, the definition of a culture is a set of shared attitudes, values, goals, practices that characterize an institution or an organization or a group of people. Okay. Another definition is a set of beliefs, practices, behaviors, symbols, and a way of life for a group of people. Okay. So cultures typically include shared language, shared rituals and practices, shared symbols, shared stories and mythologies, shared ethics, and some type of community structure. Okay. So does modern witchcraft have these? Yes. Check, 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 all of them. Okay. As far as shared languages, the witchcraft community, it doesn't matter how you practice, or your spiritual beliefs, we have a shared language. When I say sabbat, most witches know what that is. When I say altar, when I say so mote it be, or blessed be, or anything like that, like we have a shared language that is understood, okay? We have shared rituals and practices, regardless of what type of witchcraft you practice. We all generally at least understand moon rituals or how to honor the moon, seasonal observances, divination practices. Like, you don't have to practice all of them, but you may understand that, like, okay, there's tarot cards and there's pendulums. So shared rituals and practices, check. Shared symbols. Of course, there are pentacles, triple moons, earth, air, fire, water, spirit. There's symbols for all of those, even if I can never keep them straight. But there's like, we have made things into symbols, like the cauldron. We all know what a cauldron looks like. A wand, an athame, a chalice. Like, we may not know what they are for, but we know what they look like. So these are also shared symbols, okay? Shared stories and mythologies. Yep, we all have goddesses, gods. Even if we do not work with deities, we understand what a goddess or a god is, okay? We do have the sabbats, which is also like shared stories and mythologies, or certain goddesses or gods are associated with the different sabbats or different times of year. Or, when it comes to shared stories and mythologies, like, there's a lot of creation stories that, are similar depending on the different pantheons. But we all have, and we all share the story of the witch trials, that's part of our history. So yes, we also have shared stories and mythologies, shared ethics. Yes. So while we may not all adhere to the rule of 3 or the rule of 10 or the Wiccan Rede, because it's Wiccan in origin, we all are aware of it. Generally speaking, most of us will also have consent involved, like for doing spells. Like, you don't do a spell for a person unless they ask you to do it, We also have like appropriation awareness when it comes to closed practices. These are all shared ethics within witchcraft. Whether or not you believe them or not, they all exist, And then community structure. Yes, we have covens. We have online covens. We have online groups. We have shops where community stuff is held. These are all community structures within modern witchcraft, okay? So, does modern witchcraft have these? Fuck yes, we do. Is modern witchcraft a culture? By definition, it 100% is. Okay? So let's just throw that out there. That is the overarching thing for this episode, is yes, witchcraft is a culture. By definition. Okay? But witchcraft and witches function more like a little subculture. We have our own language. We have our own symbols. We have our own inside jokes. Oh my gosh, do we? Oh my gosh. Values, all of it, okay? But instead of it being like one single ethnic or regional culture, it's actually a spiritual practice culture with multiple lineages and multiple branches, okay? So if you're thinking of culture in the terms of just like an area, okay, or a group of people, that are grouped together by ethnicity, that's not really what we're talking. We're talking about culture in that definition I gave you, a shared set of beliefs, practices, behaviors within a group, So like subcultures exist. Like, there are there are people that love anime. So they would be part of an anime subculture, There are people who absolutely, even in paganism, there are your nature worshipers, like the people that really work with nature all day long. They go out, they live in it, they want to, whereas there's city witches, So those are like little subcultures. But that's basically what witchcraft and witches, we're part of a subculture that has our own everything. We almost can sense each other too. So yes, witchcraft is a culture, okay? If witchcraft is a culture, can it be appropriated like young Alice was worried about, okay? So my initial answer to this is yes and no. But number one, I'm going to give you my full unadulterated answer at the end of the episode. But what we're going to do on the way there, because this is going to be a journey. This is not a 10-minute episode where I'm like, yes, witchcraft is a culture. You all have a nice day. Okay. We're going to explore it. We're going to talk about it. Like, I wanted to know your thoughts down in the comments. So initial answer, yes and no, witchcraft. The witchcraft culture can be appropriated, yes and no, okay? But to be able to get into it, we're going to have to talk about appropriation for a minute. We're also going to have to talk about witchcraft as a culture versus as an aesthetic, because that's another part of it too. All right, hold on, flipping my notebook. Okay, so first off, let's talk about appropriation. Now, I've talked about this before. I couldn't tell you what episode it was, but Megan Winkler and I just talked about this on our podcast, Two Witches Talking, our joint one. So if you're here on YouTube, go to podcast. You'll also see Two Witches Talking, and literally go like 2-3 episodes back. That's all it was. Okay. So I'm not going to like go over, I mean, I can create entire episodes on cultural appropriation. Okay. We're just going to go through it real quick. So if you want to dive into more about cultural appropriation, either find my old episode or listen to Two Witches Talking from just a couple of weeks ago. Okay. Modern witchcraft is a practice. It is an open practice. Okay. We're talking modern witchcraft, witchcraft as we know it today. Okay. It cannot be appropriated unless you are performing actions or stealing beliefs from traditions that are closed or culturally specific. Okay, do you remember I said that yes, witchcraft is a culture, but it has its own lineages and its own little branches. Okay, if you are performing actions or stealing beliefs from one of these branches who is closed, then you're culturally appropriating that branch of witchcraft, magic, nature worshiping, whatever you want to call it. Okay. So culturally specific and closed practices or closed belief systems include hoodoo, voodoo, indigenous practices, etc. Okay. There are also spiritual paths that do require initiation. There are some Wiccan paths where you have to be trained and initiated in order to perform their rituals or know their secrets, you know? So some Wiccan paths, but also there are folk magic practices that must be like carried down through the generations, and you have to be taught it by someone who was taught it by their someone, you know, it's going back generations. And it has to be taught by someone specific, and you have to like almost be initiated into that practice. Okay. Those are also not open. I don't care if you read a book on hoodoo. If you have not been initiated into hoodoo and trained by someone in hoodoo, and if you've not been invited in, then do not practice hoodoo. I don't give a shit if you've read a book about it. Okay? All right? So this is where it starts to break down, and I love it. Okay? Calling yourself a witch isn't appropriation, but performing practices from closed systems without context, without permission, without initiation, without being a part of that closed practice, that 100% is appropriation. Okay? So there's that first distinction there. Now, the second thing about this question of can witchcraft be culturally appropriated? The second thing is witch and witchcraft. I'm trying to see if I'm saying this correctly. We'll just go with witch. Witch is also an aesthetic now. Okay? There is a witch aesthetic. You can head to Pinterest. When you get to Pinterest, first of all, look us up, Ain't Goddess Creations, and give us a follow, because like we've been working really hard on the Pinterest since like December. So we got some really good shit going on. So, side note, just find us and follow us on Pinterest, Ain't Goddess Creations. Yeah. Anyway, now go up to the little search bar, type in witch aesthetic. Oh my God, your feed is about to get absolutely beautiful. Okay. Now, witch aesthetic is mostly black clothes, gothic, and lots of nature thrown in. Okay, and this can be for clothes, this can be for rooms. You'll see gorgeous pictures of altars. This all falls under the quote unquote witch aesthetic. Okay, that's what it generally is, though. It's the black, the gothic, the nature dominant. Okay, but just because you love the witch aesthetic doesn't mean you're a witch. Okay. I absolutely love the witch aesthetic. I absolutely love, type in fun things like pink witch aesthetic, type in unicorn witch aesthetic, type in fairy witch aesthetic. I love all of them. Do I identify as a fairy witch? I do not. Do I identify as a unicorn witch? I don't. But they're gorgeous. Okay? There is a difference between being and looking witchy and practicing witchcraft. Okay, and unfortunately, in our world that is dominated by algorithms and social media influencers and infinite knowledge, unfortunately, being witchy, quote unquote, is a trend. Okay, being witchy doesn't mean today what it did 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And as someone who's been a practicing witch now for 26 years, I can definitely tell you that the culture has changed, okay? A lot of accounts on social media will show you how to do a stop gossip spell, but chances are they couldn't tell you a damn thing about true shadow working, the energy it takes for long-term devotion as a witch, or even the self-discipline that it takes to own your power as a witch. But they're going to show you some pretty cool spells that probably involve some lemons and some candles. Yeah. So when witchcraft becomes a trend, we do get some positives of it, which I know I've talked about before on the podcast. Not sure when or where or how long ago it was. But when witchcraft becomes a trend, yes, there is less stigma associated with it, which means that beginner witches or people, young people especially, who are curious about witchcraft can do so out of the broom closet, or they can just be like, oh, I'm just kind of researching about this. And there is a lot less stigma to it than there was 20 years ago, you know? There's also more access to information. There's so much more access to information, okay? That's a positive and a negative, which I'm going to talk about in a second. There is easier community building when witchcraft goes mainstream or becomes a trend. And let me tell you, every September, even mainstream businesses, like who was it that had the tarot decks that one year? I can't even remember who it was. Was it like Sephora or somebody? Anyway, everybody becomes a witch in September. Every brand out there becomes a witch in September. So it does get watered down. It does get diluted. But it does open the doorway for people who are curious about witchcraft to make it acceptable to learn more, you know? And it's easier to build community when witchcraft goes mainstream or is a trend, okay? There's also easier to have open conversations about it, all right? For example, I'm gonna give you a real life example. We have hosted the Witches Bazaar for 2 years now. Okay, this year coming up, this October will be the 3rd year. And I wanted to do it in October. And the first one was a complete success. It was a crazy, chaotic success because it was here in the office. Last year, we took it to Trail Dust Town, which is like a touristy, little, adorable Western town. And we took over Trail Dust Town, and it was an amazing event. Thousands of people showed up, okay? So it prompts, when there are successful events like this, it prompts not only people attending the events, but also the vendors. Hey, are we going to do this again? I made a lot of money. Are we going to do this again? And I thought about it. The only time here in Tucson that we can do things outside is from like October-ish until March-ish, maybe April. Maybe April, you could squeeze out a weekend or two in April where it's not 110, okay? So we had thought about doing another one in April, okay? We could not pull it together this year. There's just still too few of us in-house to be trying to do the Tucson Gem Show and run a business and event plan, a huge event where thousands of people attend. But another reason that went into us not doing it in April is because you do a witch thing in October, you're going to get those curious people that are like, do they mean witch or do they mean like witches, you know? So they're going to, let's just go. It's a free event. Let's just go. I'm curious. And then they get there and it's a witch event. There's witches everywhere, like real witches everywhere. But now it's a little bit more open. It's a little bit more, they can explore their curiosity in a very safe setting because it's October. It's the witch season. It's Halloween season. So this, to people that don't want to see what it is, that, oh, that's just a Halloween event, you know? But it's not. It was a witch event, you know? But we have it in April. That's just blatant. We're witches. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. But I'm saying that when we have the event in October, it opens up the doorway a hell of a lot wider for those who are curious to come and check it out and then see the real witchcraft that's weaved into it and find the vendors that are selling the real witchcraft items, you know? So that's just a little side thing I wanted to throw in here. But all right, let's go on. So when witchcraft culture becomes a trend, or when witchcraft becomes a trend, the witchcraft culture also risks losing some things, okay? The first thing is there's so much content, what's real? Like I said, name brand companies like Sephora and they all go witchy in September. So we real witches, our voice on social media gets drowned out so badly, okay? And that's the first one and the second one, but there's so much content. It's very hard to tell what's real and what's not. What is real witchcraft versus what is witchcraft aesthetic? Because there can be a difference. I also believe, I mean, you can find wisdom anywhere. You can practice witchcraft however, but you have to look at the energy that was going into putting out that piece of content or behind it. Like, was it from a person that's been practicing, that's done their research, that's done their shadow working, that's done all of this, or is it someone just sending you surface level bullshit, you know? And that's the second thing. Real practitioners are drowned out by cutesy altars and rituals when there's so much content out there, you know? So you're interested in witchcraft, you go to Google and you type in like beginner witchcraft course. Oh my God, you're gonna find them on that shit site. What is that shit site? I think it starts with a U. Udemy? Is that it? It's a shit site, you guys. Please. It's a shit site. Those are the people, like for $50, you'll be a level 1 witchcraft initiate. It's a shit site, okay? I think it's called Udemy. Or for $50, you could be a certified herbalist. Please, no, that is not a real course. You're not getting a real certification. You're getting a piece of paper that someone created in Photoshop, and you get to print it out at the end of it. I don't know if I've ever seen a legit, like, real cool course on Udemy, but all I've seen is a lot of shit on there. I think it's called Udemy. Anyway, you're gonna have to look it up. I'm sorry if I just, like, burst all y'all's bubble on that one. But yeah, so if you're going to look for like a beginner witchcraft course or even an online coven, you know, are you gonna get something with an actual witch who's teaching you things, or are you gonna get a crowdsourced, like the members are shoving information out and there's not really anyone teaching anything. It's just kind of a conglomerate of community. That happens a lot too. So yeah, another thing that we risk losing when witchcraft becomes trendy is our tools can now be found by mass-produced commercial companies that have no idea what they're making or what it does, okay? Now, I can argue, like I said earlier, that You know, I can go outside and pick up a stick and use it as a wand, and I'm going to use that as a wand. I can also find these, you know, Chinese manufactured wands, and I could use that as a wand. I'm the one that puts the energy into it, okay? So as long as you cleanse it and use it, you can. But there's something, I can tell you that there's something about ordering your supplies. Sounds like a shameless plug, but from a real witchcraft business versus Amazon. But I've used Amazon shit too. You know what I mean? But it does mean that our tools are just mass produced now, and it is harder to see ones that are handcrafted by people. Even Etsy's full of Chinese manufactured shit, you know? So it's getting harder and harder now to distinguish between the difference between stuff that's really made by witches, that time and effort and love and energy and magic was put into it, and shit that popped off of an assembly line, you know? And then beginners also think tools or cool things make them a witch instead of learning the knowledge and the energy behind magic. Like, oh, I just need a wand and a cauldron, and then I can perform this spell, and then I'm a witch. And they have no idea how magic works, how energy works, how energy manipulation works, you know, and it gets sad. And then the last part of this little section is the witch becomes a labeled identity instead of a lived relationship. And that is what witchcraft is. It is a lived relationship with power, with nature, with the unseen, with energies that are flowing around you, and with yourself. That is what witchcraft truly is, a living relationship, essentially with yourself. Okay? So let's circle back around to Miss Alice and her statement of, I'd feel bad for appropriating the witch culture. Okay? It is such a deep statement. It actually makes you think so much about witchcraft. I've been a witch for over 25 years, like a practicing witch, and it made me think. But it also made me realize how it's perceived by the outside world. Like this was just a statement made, a line in a script on a TV show that has nothing to do with the witchcraft. And for me, it was a beautiful statement. It was a beautiful thing for her character, who's 17, I think, in the show, to say that, to say, I'd feel bad for appropriating the witch culture. It was a beautiful statement. We are a culture, but it's so much deeper than an aesthetic. So can witchcraft be appropriated? We're here. We're at the end. I said a little while ago, my initial answer was yes and no. Okay? But here it is laid out. No, modern day witchcraft has so many open practices that as a whole, it means you cannot appropriate the culture of witchcraft. Okay, so no, it cannot be appropriated. But, there's a but. And I wrote it down, and I'm sorry that I'm not going to be like looking at the camera as much because I want to make sure I wrote it down so beautifully. Okay, if you are here to call yourself a witch and do surface level spells while never understanding the lineage and history of witches, the underlying current of magic, and how it works, or doing shadow work to get to know yourself most of all, then yes, you are appropriating the witchcraft culture, and I stand by that statement. Okay? If you are not here to live witchcraft, then you are appropriating the witchcraft culture. Because witchcraft is to be lived, not put on and taken off whenever the fuck you feel like it. So, there you go. I do have strong feelings after a single line said on a 30-minute episode of Shrinking. But witchcraft is to be lived. Okay, so if you're not here to live witchcraft, then yeah, you're culturally appropriating the witches. If you say you're a witch and you dress in the witch aesthetic, because let me tell you, witches don't look a certain way either. You know, there is no true like, oh, that person's a witch or that person's a witch or that person's not a witch. You know, just because you wear all black doesn't mean you're a witch. And just because you wear not all black doesn't mean you're not a witch. I hope that statement made sense. But yes, witchcraft is to be lived. Okay. All right. So my Patreon bonus content for this week's episode, I'm going to share my story of how I moved from witch as a rebellious label to actual witchcraft embodiment. And let me tell you, I'm going to tell you right now, even if you've been listening to this podcast, you've listened to every episode, you're part of the coven, you know everything that I've told you. The answer to this of how I moved from using witch as a rebellious label into witchcraft embodiment, it was a longer journey than you think it is. But I definitely want to let you all know that we are starting the new year of the Ink Spirit Coven. It is all about feral witchcraft, which is getting down into who you are at your core, the witchcraft that makes you light up, guiding, listening to your intuition, letting your energy guide how you practice, all of that. That is what the entire next year from March until February of the Ink Spirit Coven is all about. So you can head to inkspirit.com to read more about that and sign up and join us. Our first lesson is not until mid-March because I have some other events I'm doing. So yeah, you still have plenty of time to join us. And even if you can't make it now, if you're listening to this episode months from now, you can still join at any time. You get access to the past lessons in our archives. I still, at this moment of recording this, I don't have any information up about alchemy. It's being filtered kind of through the coven right now. So like if you're in the coven, you have all of the information about alchemy, which is the next energetic tier of the coven. But I should have a landing page up. So hopefully by the time this comes out, this episode comes out, you can look down in the bottom for the link to alchemy if you want to do more of the energetics that underlie feral witchcraft. Okay. And then yes, Patreon bonus content. So that's it. That's what I have for you all today. I want to thank you all for being here and for listening. Please let me know in the comments if you're watching on YouTube or if you're on like Spotify. I don't get the notifications very often, but you can leave comments there, or on Instagram and Facebook. There is a soundbite that goes out every Wednesday. You can definitely comment there. I'd love to know your biggest takeaways from this week's episode. But yeah, thank you for listening, for giving me a platform to share my knowledge and my opinions on things. And I will see you all next week. Bye.